Right now, you have an opportunity. By doing nothing, you can serve your nation and the world. You're not suffering life, you're suffering that idea. But if the idea gets stronger and stronger, then the body will also start suffering after some time. So this is a good time that you break the status quo of who you are and see if you can transform yourself into a better human being. See if you can transform yourself into a more wonderful presence to be. See if you can become that wonderful person that you always wanted to meet. You become that wonderful person, don't search for them. If we don't understand what I'm saying, you can keep your mouth closed and hold your nose like this for two minutes, that you don't want to breach your boundaries, you want your boundary to be absolute, then you understand what happens to life.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Sadhguru, the Indian yogi, mystic, visionary, and philanthropist. You have been a keynote speaker at the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and have been named as one of India's 50 most influential people. Your book, Inner Engineering, a New York Times bestseller, details your transformational system for achieving inner fulfillment. And your Isha Foundation, with more than 9 million volunteers worldwide, is dedicated to addressing all aspects of human well-being. During this COVID-19 coronavirus global lockdown, you are providing guidance on how people can use this time to improve ourselves both physically and mentally. Sadhguru, thank you very much. Welcome back to London Real.
Namaskaram, nice to be back with you, huh? Nice to be back in London, but unfortunately London is not doing well. It's really disheartening to hear that your Prime Minister is in the hospital. That's not good for the country. I think it'll put the people down, seeing that the leaders are getting affected like this. I hope he gets well soon.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And we've seen, what it looks like, millions of people infected worldwide. The deaths are now approaching the 100,000 mark. Nearly 3 billion people locked down, 1.3 billion in your country of India. Sadhguru, you recently said in every situation there is a teaching if you are willing to learn. And I'm wondering, what is the teaching moment here, in your opinion?
See, it is not that the virus is interested in teaching you anything. The virus would like to see that you don't learn anything new. You don't learn anything, you won't produce some antibodies for it. So virus is not interested in teaching you anything or you learning anything from the virus. The important thing is, first and foremost thing is, situations like this bring home to most human beings who are unconscious most of the time, that how fragile human life is. We are a tiny microscopic organism we are in terms of this cosmos, or even as a planetary system in the solar system itself, we are sitting on a tiny little mud ball called Earth and we're thinking too much of ourselves. So these kind of things bring home as to who we are. Sitting in a tiny little place like this, we are thinking we are the center of the universe, which is the biggest mistake humanity has done. So in a way, it brings home that we shouldn't have waited for the virus. This is something we must always perceive and understand. And above all, to be conscious of, then we would prioritize our life in a very different way. Right now, most human beings are going about as if they are the center of the universe and they're going to be here forever. Viruses kind of brought this home to most people that, well, tomorrow it could be you or me, all right? This is always true. It's not today, it's always true. Every day on the planet, nearly 150 to 200,000 people die of natural causes and otherwise. But most people think only other people die. A situation like this makes you understand it's also you who could die. This is very important for us to understand and get our life into proper perspective. Otherwise, we're just running away with something, not realizing what is what. It's unfortunate, a virulent virus has to bring this home to us. We should do this consciously ourselves.
Yeah, you said once that, a lot of us live death by installments, and yet the only certainty is death. And I guess it's times like this where we're forced to confront our own death and our relationship with death, and that makes us examine our life, and that can be uncomfortable. Is that right?
No, you should bring your life to ease because you understand you're not here forever. If you are here forever, just look at your concerns, endless concerns. You know it's a brief amount of time. All you have to do is make it beautiful for yourself and everybody around you. That's all you have to do because you have a limited amount of time. If you had the responsibility of infinity upon you, how terrible it would be.
And when you think about the virus itself, I mean, you said something interesting because the virus won't go somewhere on its own because it actually needs us. How should we have this relationship with this thing that's inside of us, and yet we're kind of running from it, but it's also a part of biology? How do we think about this thing?
Well, today is common knowledge that a large part of our body is bacteria, virus, everything, microorganisms are working for us. In terms of numbers, if you take, actually we have more microorganisms in our system than our own body cells. So, it is very much part of us, it's just that this particular virus who lived wild, in wild animals, has entered us. It's still not figured out how to just tax you, not kill you. Right now, it's taxing you in such a way that it could kill you. I think in a little while they will learn how to just tax you and make their life going rather than to take your life, because that's not their interest. Their interest is they have found a new habitat. As this is not… I'm not trying to propound some biological theory. I'm saying just common sense says that suppose viruses or whatever kind of life existed in wildlife, and wildlife in terms of numbers and percentages, they're coming down significantly. That means their habitat is going away. If their habitat is going away, it is natural for them to seek new habitat. So, in a way, it's like that. This is just simple common sense I'm talking, this is not biological sciences. But this will inevitably happen as their habitat gets reduced, then naturally they will seek other kinds of creatures upon which they can survive. And even within us, probably in a few months' time, they will learn to live with us without really creating fatalities. I think they will come to that, that's what most of the scientists say. But when it will come to it, whether it will become more virulent or less virulent, these are all, we can only propose, the virus disposes.
Is this nature teaching us some lessons or making some suggestions to us as far as maybe the size of our population or the density, or like you said, how we treat our natural habitats and our wildlife?
Well, we are talking about a particular virus right now, but as far as the planet is concerned, we are a virus. We are virulent, we are ripping it off, all right? So in planet's experience, I'm sure Mother Earth experiences human beings as virus, and a very virulent virus. Is nature trying to teach us a lesson? First of all, we need to understand we are not some extraterrestrial creatures that nature is going to teach us a lesson. We are nature. Once we forget this, that we are nature, and everything, every creature in this… on this planet, every microorganism, insect, worm, bird, animal, everything has a role to play in our life. When we forget this, It will just come home naturally. It's not that they are trying to teach you a lesson. It will naturally come home one way or the other. I've always been saying this. Either we can consciously correct the mistakes we have done, otherwise nature will teach it to us in a very cruel manner. But nature has no intent to teach us. It's not like there is somebody called nature sitting there wanting to teach us a lesson. We are nature, and it will find its own levels. And this is… I wouldn't say this is because of something that we have done. It is not like a crime and punishment kind of business. It is just that natural consequences are there because we are the maximum number of creatures on this planet. We get a lot of things. Suppose there were more monkeys or more buffaloes or more elephants on this planet than human beings, they would be getting it. So because we are the majority, Homo sapiens, we get it.
Because we are nature, ultimately. We all are.
We are nature. First, that's the most fundamental thing that has to sink into human beings. Just because we have a certain amount of individual experience and just because we have a certain amount of thought and emotion of our own, we are taking this individuality rather too seriously. We will understand we are part of the earth. For most human beings, they only get it when you bury them. Till then, they think they are a completely separate entity from the planet. So, when we are buried, it's a bit too late. If we get it now, that the very soil that you walk upon is also the body that is so valuable to you. If this is realized every moment of our life, we would definitely tread much more gently upon this planet. Not because of some ecological sciences, just simply as life, it would be natural for us to do that.
Yeah, in our last conversation, you went deep into how if we can understand that we are nature, then we don't need to be told how to treat it. We don't need a lesson in morality or in values. If we can actually see nature in ourselves, then it's obvious how to behave. I think you made an analogy to me, you don't cut one of your fingers off, so why would you treat nature that way? And we use part of that in our latest film, Reconnect, and it's amazing. So I appreciate you putting that in perspective, Sadhguru. I'm curious for you, in the last month, what has surprised you when you look at the world reaction to this? Both good and bad. What have you seen humanity do that maybe might have surprised you, or is it not surprising?
It's not surprising for me. The way the humanity is reacting is very expected. The fear, the insecurity, and the economic panic, and many religious nuts reacting in their own way and saying they will find some heavenly solution. Of course, leaving this place is a good solution, if that's what you think about yourself. But most people want to live. This idea that, in my opinion, this idea that there is a better place elsewhere than this planet to live is the most disastrous and criminal idea that's gotten into people's heads. So the idea of heaven, that there is another place which is better than this place, has been the main source of destruction in many ways. If people realized this is the place for you to live, either you make this into heaven or hell, within yourself and around yourself, if everybody got this, I think we would live much more sensibly. So, there are religious nuts, there are people with ideologies who are thinking and philosophies. People are busy weaving new philosophies. There are a whole lot of people that there is some sadistic satisfaction. Whenever a tragedy happens, they will try to find a lesson and write a scripture on that. How you're being punished by God or by nature or this or that. That's not the way to look at it. When people suffer, what is needed is compassion and responsible action. That's all. It is not a time to weave philosophy and say, because you did all this, now you're getting this as a result of that. This is a very… I don't know, it's quite inhuman for me to tell people who are suffering. Right now, somebody is on their deathbed with their lungs full of whatever, fibrosis or whatever. You go and tell that guy, you're being punished because you did something wrong with this planet, or you did something wrong against God, or whatever philosophies you have. I think it's quite obscene to do that. It is just that this is the nature of life. Nature of life is such, it is one life is woven into another. Lives are not happening separately. All lives are woven into one another, and at certain times, certain life dominates certain situations. Right now it is the virus. It's time right now, we need to overcome this.
You recently said, we will all die. Either you die for nothing or you die for something, and I would rather die for something. Is this a time we need to examine our death in that way and what we want our life to mean? Is this a good time for that? Is that the positive we can get from this difficult situation?
This is a time we must ensure that we stay alive and everybody around us stays alive. That's the most important thing. Well, young people who were hesitant to go and serve the society outside, then I told them, anyway you're going to die, at least die for something rather than dying for nothing. When something is necessary, if as a human being, if you forsake your humanity for your safety, I think I cannot live with that. I would rather keep my humanity, and my safety I will forsake if necessary, but my humanity I would rather keep. So some people choose to forsake their humanity because they think it's safe. There is no safety like that. There is no safety in that. Once you've lost it, once you've lost your basic sense of humanity, then what is the meaning of your safety? So in that context I said that. Anyway, it is true that all of us will die. It's not my idea. Death is not my idea, though recently I published a book in India called Death, an Inside Story. It's not a novel, it's a
Good timing.
No, this was done just before the virus in December.
And what are some of the lessons from the book that apply to what's happening right now?
So the book is titled like this, Death, an Inside Story, a book only for those who shall die, not for the immortal beings, only for those who shall die, which may be a small number of people.
And are you going to tell us a little about the book, or do we have to buy it to find out?
I can send you one. I'll send you one. Make sure send a book to Brian.
Something else you said recently is that the human species doesn't like boundaries, and that the moment there's a threat to our survival, you know, we kind of build boundaries, and you know, we're usually trying to expand all the time. I'm just wondering what you're seeing here as far as this boundary to us, and it's a threat for our expansion. Is that why we react in this way to it?
No, I think this reaction is mostly people fear, fear of death is one thing definitely, because that's an imminent possibility. And another thing is loss of economic well-being maybe. And for other people, it's loss of their liberty. For other people, it's loss of they can't go and sit in the pub. It's loss of, restrictions on their compulsive behavior in many ways. They don't see this as a great opportunity to stay at home, to spend some time with themselves, improve themselves, spend some time with the family. No, it seems that domestic violence is going up almost 100% in many countries. In various countries, domestic violence has gone up in a huge way. In some countries, up to 100% increase in the domestic violence complaints. So, if we get time to be with each other, then we will battle each other because we don't know how to be with anybody. These are not some strangers that you're locked up with. You're not Robinson Crusoe, on a deserted island. You're just with your family. People that you consider and claim are your loved ones. And 15 days, woof, you freaked out, you can't stay with them. So it's time to examine the nature of who we are, how we are keeping ourselves, what is the nature of our relationships. First of all, we are being referred to as human beings. No other creature on this planet is referred to as a being. All of them are creatures. There is no elephant being or tiger being or anything like that, only human being. So the most fundamental qualification to be a human being is that you know how to be. Oh, how far from the definition are we? Do people know how to be? If they knew how to be, every opportunity is a possibility. Even this. Though it has an economic cost, maybe it could be fatal for many people, but still, even this is a possibility if we know how to be. Right now, human beings are a bundle of thoughts, emotions, ideas, opinions, prejudices, and above all, compulsions. Because of that, this collage of things that we have put together as me, right now, or as myself, this is causing all the trouble. So, everything that you think, everything that you feel, including your physical body, is something that you slowly gathered over a period of time. Now, what you gather can be rearranged in your home, furniture can be rearranged. But if you try to rearrange furniture, there'll be domestic situation because somebody else doesn't like it. They want everything status quo. So this is a good time that you break the status quo of who you are and see if you can transform yourself into a better human being. See if you can transform yourself into a more wonderful presence to be. See if you can become that wonderful person that you always wanted to meet. You become that wonderful person. Don't search for them.
How do we start that?
They're an extinct species.
How do we start that process? Is it meditation, reflection? Like, how can we start that new relationship with ourselves?
Well, the simple thing is, now that the situation is forcing people to be away from everything else for some time, in the yogic system, out of the eight… you must have heard of the 8 limbs of yoga. It's called Ashtanga Yoga, 8 limbs of yoga. One of the limbs of yoga is called Pratyahara. Pratyahara means, see, most of the time in your life, you're perceiving everything through your senses. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste and what you touch. This is how you know there is a world around you. This is what is giving you all the information. This information is all given to you in parts, only to the extent it is necessary for your survival. That is why human beings are such a mess. See, right now if you see this part of my hand, you cannot see this part of my hand. So you will see this part of my hand and make your conclusions about my hand. But the moment I turn around, you know it's an Indian hand. This way I could be anybody, but this way you know, this is an Indian hand, all right? So for everything, even if you take a grain of sand, you only see one part of it. This is the nature of sense organs. It cannot perceive everything as it is, it only perceives in parts to the extent it is necessary for your survival. Anything beyond survival it doesn't tell you because that's not its business. But once you come as a human being, survival is not good enough. Suppose we give you food and shelter to live, we will make sure you get food for the rest of your life. Will you just live happily in one room? You will not, because you will want something more. If we give you that something more, you will see by evening you will want something more. This will go on endlessly if we give you the planet and make Brian the king of this planet. Will he settle? No, he will look at the stars. If I give you one galaxy, will you settle? No, you will want the next one. Because this is the nature of being human. There is something within us which does not like boundaries. There is something within us that is constantly seeking boundlessness. But right now, because we have kept ourselves unconscious, it is seeking this unconsciously through physical means. Through physical means, if you try to reach boundlessness, inevitably you will be frustrated. Why I'm saying this is, the nature of physical existence, why physical exists is only because of a defined boundary. If there is no defined boundary, there is no physicality. If I remove the boundaries of my body, there is no such thing as physical body anymore. So, physicality exists because of boundaries, but there is something within you which wants to go beyond all boundaries. So, when you make an attempt through physical means, if you try very basic physical expansion of yourself, this is called sexuality. If you attempt this with your thought, this is called ambition, conquest, accomplishments. If you try with your emotion, this is called a love affair. If you do it consciously, it's called yoga. Yoga means union. This is one definition, Brian, we must change in UK or wherever people get to reach you. that yoga does not mean twisting and turning and Lululemon pants and that kind of stuff. What yoga means is union, that your idea of you being an individual is just your idea. Nobody believes it. You ask the tree, it's laughing at you because it knows without it giving out oxygen, you cannot breathe. It always knew. Only now human beings are realizing after taking away too many trees from the planet. So, our existence here is not individual, it is happening as a composite whole. But in our thought and emotion, we have started taking our individuality rather too seriously, so seriously that we are suffocating. This suffocation, you give grand names like I have depression, I have manic depression, I have this, I have that. All that's happening is you are suffocating in your own physical boundaries because you made it so constricted. If we don't understand what I'm saying, you can keep your mouth closed and hold your nose like this for 2 minutes, that you don't want to breach your boundaries, you want your boundary to be absolute, then you understand what happens to life.
And so this is a great time for us to realize that this is the human nature, to try to expand beyond our boundaries, and that's to a certain extent futile. And so we should have or meditate on the fact that that is not who we are and that we are more than that.
If I can correct this a little bit, the question, because we are not trying to expand, we want to become boundless. Because our thought is going in incremental process, we think the way to go towards infinity is in installments. This is like counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one day I will say infinite. Is it possible?
No.
We'll only become endless counting. So we are not looking for expansion, we are not looking for more, we are looking for all. But right now it's finding expression in installments, that is the main problem.
Wow. And what about people that say to you, Sadhguru, I'm bored right now. I'm sitting at home bored. Someone told you they were bored of the internet, and that was pretty impressive. Why are people bored?
If you are bored of yourself, can you imagine the plight of all the people who have to live with you? So what you're bored of is not life. What you're bored of is not the world around you. What you're bored of is what is happening in this bone box. Your own thought and emotion is making you very bored. It needs some extra input on a daily basis, otherwise it feels bored with what is there. So this input was happening with social interactions and you are titillating yourself with social media, people, this, that. But after 1 week, 10 days of social media, you are repeating the same things. You are always repeating the same things. If I don't understand, if people don't understand what I'm saying, you must go and sit in a London bar where all the old-timers are meeting. The moment they get drunk, day after day, year after year, they're generally talking about the same thing. People think because they're drunk, they're talking like this. No, because they're drunk, they're a little more honest. Otherwise, they will make it up in so many different ways. Because they're a little drunk, they're honest now, they're just, rolling out what is there on their mind. If you listen to it, it's always the same thing, always the same thing. A few things that they think is great, they're just endlessly talking about it. Why this is happening is because whatever you might have gathered in your mind, compared to the nature of the existence, it is a minuscule. You're trying to make a minuscule accumulation of the existence that you have within yourself. Why? When the whole existence is available to you, why is it that you're trying to live with a minuscule? Because this is my minuscule, this is your problem. I am telling you, if you want, I will make a document, a proper document. It's not legal, but I can make you a document that this whole existence belongs to you and distribute it to the whole population. This is what I've been trying to do. It anyway belongs to you, why do you need a piece of paper? Because the whole world is moving towards a paperless operation. I'm telling you, let's forsake the paper document. I'm telling you, this whole cosmos belongs to you. If you're willing, it's yours. Brian, you are somewhere far away, but I think you're mine. What's the problem? You can also take me, no problem.
So if we're bored, it's because we are not, I'm not going to use the word expand.
We are exclusive. We've excluded ourselves from the universe.
Okay.
We are not inclusive in nature.
Okay. So if we can include ourselves in this totality of the universe and nature and all these amazing things happening, we will never be bored.
No, it is not that we have to include ourselves. Genuinely try to exclude yourself and see. In your mind, you have excluded yourself. Instead of that, genuinely try to exclude yourself. Right now, you don't want to be involved with this world. First thing you must cut is food, water, breath. Cut it off for 2 minutes and see how exclusion feels. That's how it feels. So, anyway, existence has included you, but in your mind you have a silly idea of exclusion and you're suffering that idea. You're not suffering life, you're suffering that idea. But if the idea gets stronger and stronger, then the body will also start suffering after some time.
I understand. I used to be someone who excluded myself from the world a lot, and it was not a very nice experience. And when I try to include myself in the world, everything changes. Now, Sadhguru, what should people be doing when they're locked at home? You said that maybe we should try to be getting 10% better or trying to raise our energy levels. What are some of the things we could be doing?
One simple thing you could do is, if you are a man, no, I don't want to get into the gender business, whoever you are, whatever is your idea of a most wonderful human being that you would like to meet, 10 qualities of that person you write down, the ideal person, not you, that ideal person. Or you think what… people, somebody thinks that ideal person is God, somebody else thinks he's son of God, somebody else thinks they're in the neighborhood. It doesn't matter which way you think, whichever way you think. What are those 10 things which make somebody into your idea of an ideal person? And see if you can become 10% of that. That is very easy to do. And another simple thing to do is, anyway, you don't have much to do right now for the next couple of weeks or few weeks, and anyway, UK says up to 6 months. Now that you are suffering your work so much, many people are suffering their work so much. The way they're going to work, I see, people are driving their dream cars and going to their work, most of them, but they're going with such miserable faces. Some of the studies in United States of America, which is probably economically the most successful country in the world, 70% of the people say that they hate their work. Not dislike their work, they hate their work. Well, then this is the best time. This is great, because it's, thank God, it's Friday. Now it's Friday all the time, for some time at least. Why can't you enjoy this? No, even on Friday you did not enjoy it, maybe you were knocked out by something, and maybe that was a relief for you, and of course for the world, because you were not there. If you get knocked out because of alcohol or drug or something, all that happened is you did not exist for a period of time. It was a relief for you, and I'm sure it was a relief for the rest of the world. Please, make use of this time. Simple thing you can do is, you can go up to 6 hours a day, but you can start with half an hour, 1 hour. Don't do anything, just close your eyes and sit. You will see, if you sit like this, in half an hour's time you have to move 10 different times. Let it be. Don't get involved in it. If your body needs to move, let it move. Your mind will go crazy, it'll run all over the place, it'll create all kinds of emergencies. Whatever happens, don't respond. Don't try to stop it, don't respond. Whatever the thought, don't follow it. Whatever the thought, don't try to stop it. Don't try to create anything new, don't try to be creative and think of something. You can't be creative, let this be very clear. You're only recycling what you already know in permutations and combinations and thinking you're making something up. Can I tell you a joke, Brian? This is getting serious. Hello?
Yes, please. I love your jokes.
This happened in 2050. A bunch of scientists sought appointment with God, and they went there. Because they were celebrated scientists, they got the appointment and they went there. Then they told God, "Hey, old man," somehow in the West at least, God is an old man, you know. In India, gods are young and they're dancing and full of romance and all that. But in the West, God is an old man because an old man is safe in every way. So, they went and said, "Hey, old man, you've done pretty well with creation, but now we can do everything that you can do." God said, "Oh, is that so? What can you do?" he asked. They said, "We can make life." Said, "Let me have a demo." So they dug up some soil, took it up, they did all kinds of processes, and it became a little baby and started meow, okay, cried out. Here it's alive, without the usual process of man, woman coming together, all this, right there in a laboratory, they created a baby which cried. God said, "Well, that's pretty impressive, but first get your own soil." Because we didn't realize when we're walking on the land, the soil that you're walking upon and who you think you are is the same stuff. You didn't make anything new. Out of this soil, a tree is coming up, out of this soil, an elephant is growing, out of this soil, you are coming up. So, everything is there, life process is on already. All you have to do is sit back and enjoy the life process. But right now, in modern societies, we've made it so hard just to make a living, because our idea of making a living is not eating well and sleeping well and being healthy. Our idea of living is we must be little better than our neighbor. Because of this one evil, you will never be able to relax in your life. So just try to close your eyes and sit, you will see how many problems you will have. If you just disengage your sense organs from outside, consumption of information, you will see slowly a certain process will naturally settle. You don't have to try to meditate, nothing. Do not respond to the physiological and psychological needs, simply sit there. This is only possible if you see how small and silly and actually idiotic our thought process and our whole thing is, when the larger existence is the way it is, and our existence is so insignificant, and now we're terrified of a invisible virus. That's how insignificant we are. But we have all kinds of grand ideas, this is going on. So the moment you think you're a smart guy, you cannot close your eyes and sit. If you realize you're a bloody fool, it's very easy to close your eyes and sit. That's the first thing you must understand. Look at yourself with a larger perspective of this creation and see how small we are, how insignificant we are, and how stupid we are, okay? How unintelligent we are compared to the creation. Then if you realize you're stupid, very easy to close your eyes and sit. That's why we're always sitting with eyes closed,
And so this is the exercise. Start with 30 minutes and maybe go up to an hour, or maybe go to multiple hours per day.
6 hours you could go.
6 hours. And start by just acknowledging your insignificance and your stupidity, and go in that way if you need to. And then go to the silence. And if your body has to move, let it move a little bit, but go back to that silence.
But the moment you think you're very smart, you can't close your eyes and sit. You want to jump into action.
Okay. All right. And there's no creativity either. It's just regurgitating what we've had around us. Okay. That's very helpful, Sadhguru. You said something about Americans, because I'm from America originally, and you were saying 70% of the people hate their job, and then on the weekend, sometimes we change our consciousness, legally or illegally, and then we're back hating our job again. And in this time, maybe we realize that it's not the job we hate. Is it maybe ourselves that we hate? or other things that we hate but we project it in our job, so now we hate not being at our job. Is that what's happening for some people now?
It's not about hating ourselves, loving ourselves, all this stuff. The point is just this: it doesn't matter in what kind of situation you are put, you will make yourself bitter and unpleasant. That's the whole thing. Wherever you're put, that's how it is. Because it is not a particular situation that human beings are suffering. Tell me one thing that humanity is not suffering. If you're a toddler, you have diaper problems, big problem. If you become a teenager, hormonal problems, very big problem. If you become middle-aged, well, there is a crisis. Old age, horrible. Tell me which part of your life is fantastic. Here and there, when you forget your nonsense, you are fantastic. Now, it is not that being a child or being a teenager or whatever age you are is a problem. The problem is you do not know how to handle your own body, your own mind, your thought, your emotion and your chemistry. You are a bad manager of things. Because you're a lousy manager, everything seems to be bad. If only, just one thing, if you're not able to… if this is too complex, taking charge of this chemistry, this energy, all this, leave all that. If you are only able to think the way you want right now, you can only think what you want, would you be always blissed out? No matter what's happening around you, you are able to think pleasant. Would you be blissed out? I'm just saying one simple thing. If your thought and emotion just happen the way you want, you would always be blissed out, isn't it?
Yes.
Or if your just chemistry became pleasant, you would always be blissed out. So the problem is just that we gave you a very complex machine. The most sophisticated machine on the planet is this human mechanism. But most people have not even read the user's manual. They think they can blunder through with such a sophisticated machine. That's all, it's creating problems. This is why inner engineering, very important.
Yeah, no, I know. It's a great book, Inner Engineering. Talk to me about businesses, Sadhguru. What do people do as they watch their businesses disappear, go bankrupt, stop in front of their eyes? You know, billions of people around the world have businesses in India, in the UK, in America. How should they feel about this right now?
Well, this is a very trying time for the economics of the way we are used to it. Every one of us, irrespective of what we are doing, whatever is the nature of our activity, every one of us is going to take an economic hit, no question about this. Big businesses will suffer in one way, small businesses another way, individual people in another way, but every one of us, including institutions like us, there is an enormous economic burden right now. This is the kind of time where everybody expects us to serve full on. We are full on, but it's difficult for people to contribute. You even feel hesitant even to ask for a contribution because everybody is in some kind of difficulty. So in a way, if this lasts long enough, if it ends in 3-4 weeks, I think we will recover quickly. But suppose it lasts 6 to 12 months for this, even if the virus goes away, for the fear to go away, for people to be able to participate fully in whatever they are doing, to forget this a little bit and go out and do things with life, it could take months. In those few months, the world's economy can take a major hit and in turn everybody else will suffer. Is there a magic wand solution for this? There is no magic wand solution. Well, the governments are right now trying to change their fiscal policies, trying to pump in money, do this, do that. All this will work in short term. But most nations, except a couple of nations, most nations cannot simply pump in money beyond 2 to 3 months' time. They will all go… the nation itself will go bankrupt in many ways. Does it mean to say it's the end of life? It is not, because we may end up start living like how we lived here 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, This depends on how long this lasts. How quickly the virus will mutate to become more friendly to human body, that is what is going to determine what will happen to our businesses. Is there going to be a lot of pain? Yes, there is. The pain is not because only one thing is there is loss of life. People who are dear to us, they may disappear, and that is one pain. Another thing is the fear of how to survive. Another thing is lowered scales of lifestyle, what you were used to and now what is being offered to you after 6 months may be way below and you may suffer that. All these challenges are there. This is not to be… this is why I said this should not be spoken in terms of nature is teaching you a lesson, because there is so much pain, there is so much loss. Loss of loved ones, loss of money, loss of lifestyles, loss of many things, insecurities of various kinds. People who are living well today, tomorrow they could be on the street in a few months' time. So we will have to relook at life differently. Suppose this lasts 6 months, 12 months, definitely a lot of relooking of what is well-being, what is doing well in a society itself will have to be relooked at.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be a new reality when we come back. I think we used to celebrate certain aspects of humans, even a year ago, whether it was the billionaires or the big successful or the Hollywood actors and this, and now I feel like we might value other things about humans, the compassion, the bravery. I don't know, I feel like it might be a new world.
This is one of the most ugliest things in the world is, we are always counting how many billions does somebody have, individually. Not about how much transaction their business is doing, that's a different gauge. You want to know a certain business is doing this much transaction, because that's a kind of a gauge to judge the business activity. But how many billions does an individual person have in his pocket? I think it's the most vulgar thing that you're rubbing into humanity's face. This must go, this kind of measure. How many billion people have you influenced? How many billion people have you served? How many million people have you provided something for? This should be the gauge, not how many billions have I accumulated. And then at the end of my life, I will give little bit to somebody. Well, that is fine. I'm not saying your philanthropy is bad, it's wonderful, at least that is being done, it's fantastic. I truly appreciate that. But at the same time, some people are doing it because they think it's a ticket to heaven or it is something else. This is not the way to build a human society. Unfortunately, we've gone pretty far gone in this direction. Let the virus not do it to us. Using this virus as an excuse, if we can make small turnarounds, a little bit of change in the complexion of the societies that we build in this world, that the crudeness of I'm 2 billion more than you, so I'm a bigger man than you, should not be the gauge of who we are.
I saw a post the other day on Instagram that said, we used to revere the NBA players and the Hollywood actors and the billionaires, and now our heroes are the truck drivers, the people who make our food, and the people who work in the hospitals.
Well, in another 3 months you will realize our farmers are the greatest heroes.
Yeah. I think this is a nice… I think…
It'll come home very strongly.
Yeah, I think that's a positive reality check of this. Sadhguru, you mentioned that domestic violence increasing 100% in some places. Why is it so difficult for us to be with our loved ones? We talked about how it's hard to be with ourselves, and we have some ideas about how we can try to process that with the spending time quietly. But why is it so difficult to be with our husband, our wife, our children, our grandparents in the same households, whereas for the previous year we could do it? Why is it hard now?
No, this whole… for a lot of them, this whole loved one business is only working because largely you are absent. I miss you, you miss me, and it's great. But now, you can't miss them wherever you are in the house, somebody's around you. Now you realize what is the nature of the relationship. This has happened simply because, once again, in the last few decades or probably in a century or so, we've largely moved this whole arrangement in such a way that it's all about me. What will I get out of you? You should be the source of my joy, my pleasure, my well-being. If you're not serving any of those things, you will be gotten rid of. So this mentality once you build, then naturally being together is not a possibility because no two people can really be together when there is so much calculation about what will I get out of this. When people are signing prenuptial agreements, suppose we divorce tomorrow, when they're getting married, before marriage, in case we get divorced, I get the house, you get the dog, you get the stocks, I get the money. I'm saying with this mindset, how do two people weave their lives together? It's simply impossible when you know this is not it. So everything is about me. It's all about me. You're here to serve me. So that is going to be very unpleasant because the other person will make sure it's unpleasant for you. Once it's all about you, people will make sure your life is a mess. And you were going off almost 12 hours a day, you were gone. So when you came home, you were very tired, you had a drink and maybe you went to bed and you woke up in the morning and again you were gone, it was working quite well. Saturdays you went out golfing, so it was working quite well. Now golf courses are closed, offices are closed, nowhere to go. 24 hours of the day, you're seeing the same face and now you're realizing what is the nature of relationships that you have built. So this is the time to understand the value of another human being. Somebody was sending me some messages, this lady telling me, Sadhguru, for the first time in my life, I'm beginning to love my mates because they're absent. You never realize the value of people who are doing small things for you, around you. You thought they're some trash, you never looked at their face, you never found out who they are, you don't know what they feel, nothing, you paid cash, so your job was done. Now suddenly that maid is absent, you have to wash your own dishes and you have to clean the house, you have to do everything. Suddenly you're realizing what a burden this stupid house that you built, which is 20,000 square feet, and you have to clean it every day. You realize what a blunder you have done with your life. So, it is time to realize all these things, that we must understand who we are really in this world, how long are we going to be here, are we making arrangements for our life as it is necessary, or are we just going wild and mad trying to be better than somebody else? If this much we realize, our relationships will fall into place.
And if we truly love someone, we should be finding ways to serve them, to treat them well, to give them things, as opposed to looking at them as objects that make us happy.
No, don't go and tell your wife, I want to serve you, she will run away. Not about serving them, it is just this, you must understand, you have formed this relationship because you have a need. You have physical needs, psychological needs, emotional needs, social and economic needs, maybe, we don't know what. Multiple needs you have, and somebody is here to provide those needs. But once a little time passes, you think they need you. No, you need them, whether it's your wife or your maid or your husband or your child, you barely need them, that's why you brought them into your life. If you're always conscious of this, you will be grateful. When you're grateful, you behave sensibly.
Yeah, very much so. Sadhguru, what about someone who's lost someone in their life because of this virus, or who someone very close to them is sick, and they're having to process the death of a loved one, maybe even remotely? They're not going to be able to see them or maybe go to the funeral. Yeah, what do you say to people who don't know how to deal with this version of death?
See, let us not categorize death as this version and that version. Whether you lose your loved one to an accident or cancer or virus, it makes no difference. You lost somebody, that is all that matters. So let us not put this virus death in a category of its own. Death is death. Death simply means somebody who was available to you is now absent, that's all. It is not because one life vanished, you're crying about it. It is just that somebody who was, filling a part of the collage for you is absent, so it leaves a hole in your life. Depending upon how close they were, accordingly it leaves that big a hole in your life. So, what you're battling with is not the death of a person, what you're battling with is the size of the hole they have left in your life. Suppose a faraway relative or a friend, somebody that you know, an acquaintance died, you feel bad for an hour and then you get back to normal. But somebody very close and dear to you passed away and now they've left a huge hole. So your problem is you trying to tend to this hole which is within yourself. This hole has happened essentially. Now what I say may sound little brutal for people who are in that situation, but one must understand this. If you look for solace, yes, if somebody comes to me who has just lost somebody dear to them, I will also hug them and, protect them and give them some solace. But you must decide whether you want solace or you want a solution to your life. Because today this person will die, tomorrow that person will die, day after tomorrow I may die myself, it doesn't matter. But people keep dying because we are dying kind of people. Let's understand this, all of us. We are dying kind of people. We are not dying only because of the virus. One way or the other we die. Some will die unfortunately early, some will live a full life and die, but every one of us will die. We are dying sort. First thing that must be fixed in our mind. We are mortal by nature. We are not mortal because of some accident or virus or something. We are mortal by nature. Somebody here in South India, this man was 111 years of age and he was considered as a great sage, hugely revered, worshipped almost godlike because he served, all his life was in service. Literally almost till the last day, he was involved in service activity right from a teenage boy to this age. All the newspapers reported, this particular Swami suddenly died. I said, what, at 111, how can you suddenly die? But for people who love him, it looks like he suddenly died because he's left a hole in their life. It doesn't matter whether he is 50 or 100 or 111 years of age, but for people who love him, for people for whom he is filling a certain amount of space within people, which it is true for millions of people in that man's case, everybody thought he suddenly died, but at 111. So, this is how it is. If people don't think that your death is, sudden, that means within themselves they've been wishing you gone for a long time. Otherwise, it will always feel sudden. If people have loved you, it doesn't matter you die at the age of 100, people will feel it is sudden. Only if they've been wishing within themselves, when will you go? Only then they will feel it's not sudden. So having said that, grief, we must understand, it is on many different levels. There is a psychological grief. In thought and emotion, you suffer the loss of the person. But depending upon how much memory you have built within your body with regard to that person, let's say if it's your child or your husband or your wife or some kind of very close bond, then a certain amount of memory is there in your body. We call this traditionally in the yogic culture as runanubandha, that is, body has developed a bond beyond your psychological friendships and companionships and love and whatever else you have. Body itself has done this. A whole lot of people feel this. Somebody close to them died somewhere, they have not received any information. Suddenly they feel their energies are gone and they're like, they don't know what's happened, but suddenly they're almost sick, they're feeling like that, completely drained out. Then after a few hours or few days, information comes that this person is dead. But well before the information came, they will feel this because within the body there is a certain process that the memory starts undoing itself and you feel like you're dumped. For this, there are yogic processes with which you can rejuvenate the system. There's a whole system of things to do. That is not something that I can discuss here, but this system is still alive. Here at the yoga center, we've kept it very alive. For people who lose their loved ones, we do certain processes so that the physical memory is taken away. Once the physical memory is taken away, the psychological suffering can be dealt with by the individual person much more easily.
You also said recently that birth we somehow assume is God's work, but death is our responsibility. I think you said it makes sense to take birth back into our hands. What did you mean by that?
No, I think… what, Brian? I thought by now you understand birth is also your work.
I agree with that, but I guess I'm trying to understand how we can think of death in
So
the same
that
sense.
was at a time when people believed that marriages were made in heaven and children fell out of heaven, all kinds of stuff. But now you know, you marry the people that you want and in 2 years' time, that person may turn out to be a terrible choice. All these things you know now. So you understand that children are made by our actions, and death also, in many ways, was subject to various realities, that many things, epidemics and infections and other things used to do it. But we brought in vaccinations and we brought in medical care, all kinds of things, and we learned to postpone death. To what extent means? Let me give you an example. For example, in India, when… oh, you're American. When the
Don't hold
English…
it against me.
No, nothing. I don't hold anything against anybody, but I don't see any problem in reminding a few people of what has been our history. So in 1947, when the British left India, the average life expectancy of an Indian was 28 years. 28.
Wow.
I hope everybody hears this clearly. 28. But today it is 73. It's a phenomenal achievement for a country to move from 28 years of life expectancy to 73. If on an average people were dying at 28 years, that means very rarely any human being attained to his fullest possibility, to find his genius, to find his competence, to express it in the world, to create something around him. There was no such possibility for almost 2 centuries because the life expectancy was 28 years. So now it's moved to 73. Actually, if you look at the birth rate in India, birth rate has never really gone up too much. It is just that more people started living longer, and suddenly the population, there's an explosion kind of situation. Population explosion has not happened because of irresponsible birth rate. Birth rate is quite okay. It's actually a healthy birth rate. But people are not dying, which is a very wonderful thing, that people are living a full life. So this is something we must decide. In any generation, 3 generations of people can exist on this planet. Right now, in many countries, 5 generations are existing at one time, which is unhealthy. The planet cannot sustain that. If, if there is a man, his son and his grandson, or if the woman is her daughter and a grandchild, that is fine. But if there are 5 generations, then that means you're burdening the planet a little too much. So should we kill the people or postpone the birth? Please tell me. I think it's humane to postpone the birth.
Okay. And lastly, Sadhguru, I want to ask you this. Fear. Fear is something that everyone's feeling now. It's paralyzing some people. Some people, I feel, maybe are even addicted to it by checking the news and finding out what's the latest. It's almost like Halloween every day. How do we deal with fear, and how can we use this circumstance to maybe teach us about how we react to fear and how we can choose to react to fear?
See, when you say how we react to fear, there is an assumption that fear is there or it's natural. No, I want you to understand, whatever kind of emotion you create, whether it's fear, anger, anxiety, joy, misery, ecstasy, all these are different types of emotions. If you have experienced fear, you would know it is one of the most debilitating emotions in a human mind. You agree with me?
Yes.
Yes.
I know this only as a secondary experience. I'm little because it is not a, uplifting experience, it's a pull-down experience, fear and anxieties. So why would you want to create that? Now people have assumed fear, anger, anxiety, these are all there and we have to deal with them. No, they are not there. You're creating them. We need to understand this. Every human experience is coming from within you. There may be an external stimulus, but you create this. In the same given situation, one person may freak out of fear, another person may remain undisturbed. So this means the situation is not giving you fear, it is the way you're reacting to it. So, if you are in a state of reaction, you will go through all these things, anything and anything and anybody can just take charge of your life and do all this stuff. This is why we talked about responsibility. Responsibility is not a civic aspect. Responsibility essentially means it's your ability to respond. If you have the ability to respond, you will do it the way you want. But if you are a compulsive reaction, outside situation will take over your life. And never, I'm telling you never, virus or no virus, never ever will the outside situations in your life ever be 100% in your hands. It'll never be so. That is the very nature of existence, that it'll not be so. It is not today. Even before the virus, neither your home nor your office situation or the street situation was ever 100% in your hands. The same thing now, nothing different. So, virus is there, yes, we need to be more cautious and we need to be careful about a few things. At least it is not jumping by itself and landing on you. There are certain kind of things which can do, but this particular virus needs another man or a woman to carry. So all you have to do is keep your distance for men and women, equal distance, I'm not saying any gender prejudice, equal distance from men and women and you're safe. If you remain safe, in many ways you made the world safe.
And how are things in India? We haven't seen the pandemic hit there as hard as it's hit us in the West and the East. What's it like there? What do the people of India need to do? What are some of the challenges there right now?
See, largely the government, the central government or the federal government has done a great job in rolling out what needs to be done at an early stage. It's very important that this happens timely. I think that is what United States kind of missed the bus, that they were a few weeks behind before they acted upon it. For that, unfortunately, that nation is paying a price. I was to be in United States by now but unfortunately it's gone there, and UK also, I think, responding a little late. But India acted quick enough before any of the other nations. Before we had any cases, we started clamping down. The important thing, as I said, is that if one human being gets it, he has to ensure it doesn't go to one more human being. We can treat you, because it's not necessarily fatal. Unless if it's not treated properly, it'll become fatal. When our medical systems and whatever organizations we have, when they get overwhelmed, then fatalities will increase many fold. But right now, the nature of this respiratory infection is such, very easily we can recover most of the time if we are treated properly. But the problem is, when millions of people get infected, obviously we cannot treat them. Because of that, they may die. That is the actual situation in the world. So still in India, I think our numbers are around 3,000 plus. That also spiked up in the last 5 days because a bunch of religious people who… there are some people who are still in the hands of God, who are very hard for us to handle. Because of them, over 1,500 people, out of them nearly 600 people were tested positive till now, and they've gone into over 21 different Indian states. Many of them are refusing to be tested because it's God's will and they want to live with the virus and they want to give it to everybody. So, Still there are a few hundred people who have not been tracked down, they're not able to track them down, they've switched off their phones, they're not reaching, and if if the doctors, the medical personnel try to go into those communities and treat them, the medical people are being attacked by these people. So except for this, we were totally in control. And we have a district level, state level lockdowns. Probably after 14th of April, we may find some relaxation, but geographically we will still lock down, most probably. That's what the government will do. So geographical movement is contained. Suppose it comes here, it just runs within a few hundred people, but it will not go into millions. This kind of care has been taken in India. Our challenge is, there are so many people who are in impoverished levels of society that if they have no livelihoods, that's a huge challenge. So we are trying to move the grains across the country or with all kinds of innovative ways to do it today. Thousands of trucks are traveling on the trains so that they can get off the train and immediately go and distribute the grains and stuff like that. But still, there's substantial amount of population. When I say substantial, in percentages it may be small. As human beings, it's millions of people still. So these people fall through the cracks, they don't come into any government scheme, they won't be served by this. That is the challenge institutions and organizations like us are trying to take and serve those people that government cannot serve. Government is directly transferring money into people's accounts so that there is… the distribution time is not taking time, all these things are being done. Largely we are in control. But once we partially relax it on, let us say, on 14th of April when we complete 3 weeks, after that what happens, we'll have to watch. And generally for example, you're in UK right now or in United States, more so in UK. I would say in UK, nearly 80% of the population has moved away from agriculture almost 100 years ago or 150 years ago. In India, 80% of us have moved away from agriculture, or 65% are still in agriculture. The remaining people have moved away from agriculture only in the last 25 to 30 years, only one generation. Those who have been close to the earth, those who've been close to the soil and worked with that, they have a different level of resistance and adaptability to these situations. So the number of fatalities in India could be, I'm just saying could be, much lower than what you are finding in Western countries simply because of this one factor. And there is also the food issue, the type of food that the West is eating and the type of food that especially in southern India, what we are eating, is naturally makes us much more resistant. So we could send you a few tips what the English people should consume on a daily basis to have little stronger immune systems, but these things won't work overnight, it'll take a few weeks for it to even show some results. But by eating consciously, by consuming the right kind of things, it could be done. The simple thing is, as far as possible, you avoid red meat and all kinds of things. If you must, it must be absolutely fully cooked, and vegetarian diets, turmeric, honey, all these things will enhance one's immune system. There are various other Indian herbs which may not be available outside this country, which could be used to enhance one's immune system. But in India, we are largely in control of it. Yesterday night, the Prime Minister had given a call, everybody should light a lamp. In the yoga center, we lit 2,642 lamps because that's the number of residents we have here. Many others are stuck all over the world, but this is the people that we have here now. All over the country, like in a massive way, people responded. So fortunately, this cooperation is coming from the people because essentially how successfully we fight this virus simply depends upon citizen participation, not just government organization. Citizen participation is most important. People who have very fancy ideas of liberty and they're trying to have virus parties and and virus parties and prayer parties and religious gatherings are some of the biggest problems. In India, this happened with a religious group, but in other places, they have strange ideas of liberty and freedom and things like that. This would cost us a lot if we don't behave sensibly. The only solution, if you ask me, is responsible and conscious action from every human being, we can easily pass through this as a small aberration. Otherwise, this could become a major calamity in our lives.
Mm. And what are you and the Isha Foundation doing for the next few weeks? I know you've been putting out a lot of videos, super helpful videos, answering lots of people's questions on your YouTube channel. But what are you planning on doing? You have people there on your compound. What are your plans?
Right now, we are working with the state government to bring more awareness in the rural landscape, because they may not know what's happening with this virus, they may not know what it is. So one thing is awareness. We have set up a 30-bed hospital in the local village where in case it breaks out, there is an emergency room and all this stuff. And we are also identifying families who have no livelihoods and trying to support them with groceries and other kinds of inputs, so that one thing is we want to ensure in this region there are no starvation deaths. We are trying to ensure that. So right now we are in the process of raising a fund to provide these things. In the last 2 days, people have responded well. We need to continue this because we have committed dedicated volunteers, but without the necessary funding, because this is going to cost a lot of money. Without the funding, we will be doing small things. With funding, we can do big things. Our Chinese volunteers have sent a few thousand masks and gloves and various other kinds of, the coverings for the medical personnel, the suits. All this they have sent just now. It is cleared the customs in Delhi, it should be here tomorrow or day after. So that will be distributed. And we are also trying to serve the medical personnel and the police who are out there fending for us, but they don't have protective gear. So we are trying to support them to see that they should not be the people who suffer. People who try to do good to us should not suffer. If we suffer, it's okay, but they who are trying to stand up for our lives, they should not suffer. So we are trying to see how to assist and strengthen their hands.
And what about you, sir? Are you getting to ride your motorcycle or get on the golf course?
All golf courses closed, roads closed. I just rode. The last day before this lockdown happened, I had meetings. There's a video out there, you could pick it up, about 3 days I rode to Nilgiris, Mysore, Bangalore and back, because appointments that I had to fulfill. And by then, people didn't want me to travel in an airplane or whatever. So I took a motorcycle and did this probably around 1100 to 1200 kilometers, I think.
Wow. But no more motorcycle, no more golf courses for now, for you.
Hitting a ball wouldn't be bad, but right now other people would become resentful, only golfers are being allowed. Actually, a golf course is a good place to be, there is sufficient social distancing, because most of the golfers, their balls go in different directions almost all the time.
Sadhguru, I really appreciate your time. Any final thoughts for people watching this that are in countries all around the world, locked down, lots of questions? Any final thoughts?
Ordinary citizens, one thing is, my folded hands, I bow to all the medical personnel, the police and other frontline, professionals who are doing a fantastic job all over the world. We bow down to them. But for ordinary citizens, you need to understand this. This is a great time for you. One thing is you can focus on your own upliftment and betterment of who you are. You make sure you come out of this virus lockdown as a better human being. As I said, whatever you think is the most wonderful human being, try to become at least 10% of that. Don't seek that person because those people are extinct, I told you. You have to bring them alive within you. That's one thing. Another thing is, right now you have an opportunity. By doing nothing, you can serve your nation and the world. There has not been a better time for you. By simply doing nothing, just keeping away from everybody and doing nothing, you're serving the world and your nation. Please serve the nation like this and the world like this, because this is the best thing you can do for humanity, is that you do not become a carrier of this virus. This is a very important act.
Yes, I very much agree. Thank you so much, Sadhguru. I highly recommend everybody to read or listen to your book, Inner Engineering. It's incredible. I look forward to reading your book on death, and people should go to the Isha Foundation website to learn more about you. You've got incredible programs, and I think I've promised now to come to India next year for your festival. It looked incredible this year. You know how to put on a show, Sadhguru, I gotta say.
You should come next year for sure, okay?
Excellent, I'll do that, and I'm gonna send you a copy of our latest movie, Reconnect. You play an excellent part in there, talking about the environment and some beautiful things.
Why are you calling me Reconnect? I'm always connected. I never…
Yes.
It was me. I was trying to reconnect. You were the connector. So I'll send you a copy of that, and people can watch that on our website at londonreal.tv. And that's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the videos you've been putting out on YouTube. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, sir. I'm a huge fan of
your perspective.
Thank Mr. James Bond and the other girl who made this go without a hitch, and we have a whole team doing this. Thanks to everybody. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, Sadhguru. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else for watching. I appreciate it. If you want to see more of our previous interview with Sadhguru, go to londonreal.tv, our website. And if you want to watch our movie with Sadhguru, it's reconnectmovie.com. Thank you so much. Until next time, I will see you on London Real.